Under my leadership, we had no wars. Instead of a globalist warmonger in the White House, you had a peacemaker at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
We're not just buying something. We're solving life and death problems for our warfighters. We're not building for peacetime. We are pivoting the Pentagon and our industrial base to a wartime footing. Building for victory should our adversaries FAFO.
Hello, Bobby Jones here for Valor Media Network and MeidasTouch Network. The clips you just saw was quite the flip-flop. We have in the candidate Donald Trump, someone who criticized and chastised previous presidents for what he called stupid wars. And then we see a recent clip of the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, talking about the United States is now on a war footing. The question is, what the heck happened? Well, I'm going to answer that, but make no mistake, the current administration, that includes President Trump, Secretary Hegseth, and other members of the cabinet, are marching the United States to war. The question you got to ask yourself is, why? So in this video, I'm going to talk about how did we get here? Like, what happened from the candidate to the president? What things changed that allowed this march to war to be much easier than it normally would be? And most importantly, what are the motivations behind it? Because I'm kind of confused, and I'm sure many of you are too. So let's just look at some of the overarching themes we've seen in the 10 months that President Trump has been in office. His second term has been a naked aggression on behalf of the United States to the rest of the world. He has escalated things specifically with Venezuela, Iran, and China. Just off the bat, we're talking kinetic attacks in Iran. We're talking about tariff escalatory war with China, and we're talking about imposing threats as we speak off the coast of Venezuela. The central theme of all of this is nowhere, and I mean nowhere, has there been a plan laid out to the American people, nor has permission been asked by President Trump with Congress. He's getting away with it because he's saying this is all under emergency powers for the trade war, emergency powers for the drug war, emergency powers for this, that, and the other, emergency powers for military marching down the street. But it was more than him just saying that. He took institutional steps to make this happen. Let's start with the institutional checks that should have been in place that at least would have paused some of his actions. First, and I've said this before in multiple videos, the removal of the top judge advocate generals of the United States military. So the top lawyers in the Army, Navy, and Air Force were removed within the first 2 to 3 weeks of the Trump administration. Basically saying, hey, we're not going to even bother with seeing if our actions are going to be legal, because the United States military has to follow legal orders. Who do we go to check to make sure that's the case? The United States JAG Corps. Well, when you remove the top members and then bring in someone to hand select who you want as a JAG, that removes proper oversight. Stepping forward from there, Congress has not been asked, addressed, briefed prior to the actions that have been taken by the current administration. There have been over 16 unilateral military strikes that the United States military has conducted that we know of in the time since President Trump has reassumed office. 16, not one congressional briefing held before and very little held after. And the few briefings that have been held after were only given to Republicans. Democrats were purposely left out of those limited number of briefings. When you add the removal of the United States, the press corps that deals with the Pentagon, okay, that can ask direct questions every day. You know, there used to be an actual daily Pentagon press briefing. We don't have that anymore. Why? Because we don't have a Pentagon press corps to begin with. They've all been forced out because Pete Hegseth is super paranoid about the leaks that continue to come out of his administration. The reason those leaks come out is because there is absolutely zero trust amongst the top military leaders and him. So with those institutional checks that have been removed, what has happened? Well, Just this fall, in 2025, the United States Navy, United States Air Force have been involved in shooting boats off the coast of Venezuela. We're talking over 75 killed, 20 boats at least that we know of that have been attacked or engaged. And now you have the USS Gerald R. Ford that has moved into the area of responsibility, joining the USS Iwo Jima and its amphibious ready group and various other cruiser destroyers that are off the coast of Venezuela. We're talking about a mass of military might that we have not really seen since the end of the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. It's a significant number. It's in the American hemisphere. It's almost as if the United States has just said, hey, we will take over this. They have not talked to China about anything that's going on in the South China Sea, and they really have not done a damn thing in trying to bring the war in Ukraine to an end. So you're looking at Russia, China, and the United States basically dividing up the world in centers of influence, while we in the United States are asking, why the hell are we going after Venezuela? The excuse has been drug wars. Well, again, we have a Coast Guard that is supposed to be able to deal with that. We have never seen this type of military might applied to drug trafficking and drug wars. But this is what's happening. Now, because of this, Venezuela has started large-scale military exercises. Over 200,000 troops have been mobilized, and they're doing these exercises in full view of the United States. Now, is it a flex trying to push back? Of course. But again, with all of those military members, platforms, weapons, the miscalculation goes through the roof. The possibility of someone doing something wrong and being interpreted by the other side as something deadly can really elevate this into an actual real war and a real crisis. The United Kingdom has suspended giving intelligence to the United States. Understand, the UK, Canada, Australia, these groups, what we call the Five Eyes, our closest allies. And now, because they're worried about how we use intelligence in killing people without basically any proof being presented, they want no parts of it. So now our intelligence apparatus has been hindered because our closest allies do not believe that we are acting in good faith. I mean, France has spoken out against these things. Colombia has spoken out against these things. At the G7 summit, Canada has spoken out against these things. All of our closest allies are wondering what the heck we are doing and why. The reality is, no one knows, because we don't have a national security strategy that has been published by the current administration. The last one happened in 2022 under Joe Biden. Typically, when a new administration comes into office, one of the first things they do is release a national security strategy. Without it, we don't know what the priorities of the United States, its defense, and its military are, but that is by design. And the final piece of this march towards war, to armed conflict of some type, is the lack of oversight being provided by Congress. The United States Senate in particular, which deals with the foreign affairs, they're the ones that verify treaties. They're the ones that the Constitution gave power to oversee the chief executive, aka the president, in international affairs, has been missing in action. They tried to pass a war powers resolution just the other day to basically say President Trump cannot just go after Venezuela, and it failed on party lines 51-49. So basically, they're rubber stamping this man doing these things without any proof. And the irony of it is, multiple senators on both sides said that they have no idea who's being killed and why. Let that sink in. The United States is conducting military action, and the United States Senate has no idea why, because the White House has not briefed them. This is why you saw the resignation of Admiral Alvin Halsey, who was the commanding officer of U.S. Southern Command, that's the area of responsibility where these forces are acting. We have a complete failure of oversight with the centralization of power with the current president. And now you have more Navy tonnage off the coast of Venezuela than we've seen anywhere in the world in basically the last 4 years. It's unbelievable. So why does this matter? And why should people around the world care? People should care because the democratic norms that regulate the United States from using its power in a rogue fashion have been neutered. The press has been silenced in the Pentagon. Legal advisors have been fired and replaced by lackeys. Congress has completely ignored everything, and they're letting President Trump just say, hey, bottom line is I have emergency powers. I can do whatever the hell I want. You have multiple military senior leaders resigning, decades of service, checking out because they realize what is happening. You have your closest allies who are alarmed and are no longer participating in intelligence sharing because they cannot trust the United States in doing the right thing. And finally, we are a stone's throw away from an active war in the Caribbean of all places. This has not been a gradual, slide to war. This has been something that's very deliberate. And the question is why? Well, you have things like the Epstein files that are about to become public. Congress is wrestling with that now. The President of the United States is trying to put pressure on Republicans not to release those files. Things are being leaked, and it looks very, very bad for the president. So what would be the ultimate distraction to something like that? A kinetic war. Anything and everything to move this off of the front pages of America's press, to include starting an armed conflict in your own backyard.
Love this video? Support independent media and unlock exclusive content, ad-free videos, and custom emojis by becoming a paid member of our YouTube channel today. You can also gift memberships to others. Let's keep growing together.